Most people think discipline is a character trait. You either have it or you don't. The people who wake up at 5 in the morning and run 6 miles before breakfast, they're just wired that way. That idea sells a lot of books, but it's also why smart, motivated people stay stuck. They try to force their way into better habits, fail after a week, and add another line to the story they tell about themselves. I'm just not a disciplined person. Here's what's actually going on. Your brain has a reward system that's been tuned over years of real behaviour, not promises. Every time you say you'll do something and you don't, you're training your brain to discount your own words. You're building a gap between what you say and what you do. Over time, that gap becomes a trust problem. Not a discipline problem, but a trust problem. The issue isn't that you lack discipline, it's that discipline, the way most people define it, doesn't really work. It treats your brain like a machine that obeys commands, but your brain is constantly comparing your words against what actually happens. When those two things don't match, your brain stops believing you, and no motivational quote fixes that. So what actually does? The first thing worth understanding is how most people respond when they miss a day, because this is where the real damage happens. You make a plan, a workout routine, a writing schedule, a commitment to stop scrolling at midnight. For a few days, maybe a week, you follow through. Then you miss a day. Something came up, or you were too tired, or you just forgot. And in that moment, you don't just register the miss. You treat it like a verdict. The plan is ruined. The streak is dead. So you might as well eat junk food tonight, skip tomorrow, and restart fresh on Monday. This is what you could call the reset trap. The belief that a single slip invalidates the whole plan, and is probably the most destructive idea in self-improvement. One missed day is just a data point. It's easy to recover from. Your brain hasn't formed a new pattern yet. When you chain that miss into 2, then 3, something shifts. 2 days in a row starts to look like a pattern. By day 3, it's a habit. The gap between missing once and missing twice is bigger than it looks. That second miss is where the real danger happens. The fix is straightforward. After a bad day, you don't need a dramatic comeback or a fresh plan. You don't need to punish yourself or to double up tomorrow. You just need to show up the next time. No grand reset, no apology to yourself. Just get back to what you decided without making a big deal of the detour. When you do this consistently, your brain learns something useful. A miss doesn't mean the system is broken. Your word still means something, even when the execution wasn't perfect. That's how self-trust actually gets rebuilt, not through flawless streaks, but through reliable recovery. Which brings us to a simple rule that makes this a lot easier to stick to. The rule is this: never miss twice. That's it. You can miss a workout, you can skip a writing session, you can stay up too late, life happens. But missing 2 days in a row is where you draw the line. The reason this works isn't motivational, it's almost mathematical. 1 miss is an event. 2 misses is the beginning of a habit. Your brain starts pattern recognition the moment you repeat something, good or bad. Miss once and show up the next day and the pattern is still intact. The miss was just noise, but miss twice and you're building something new, something you didn't intend to build. Most people think that the first miss is where they failed, but the first miss is recoverable. The second miss is where the old pattern creeps back in, and where your self-belief takes a hit. You can miss once, but don't miss twice. So the rule is simple. Mess up today, show up tomorrow. No negotiation. No waiting for motivation. No, I'll start fresh next week. Tomorrow you do the thing, even a half-hearted, low-energy version of it. The point isn't performance, the point is continuity. There's another way this falls apart just as common. We decide to fix everything at once. Sleep, diet, exercise, phone habits, reading, finances, all of it, starting on Tuesday. It works beautifully for about 9 days. We feel unstoppable. And then somewhere around day 10, the whole thing collapses. We miss one thing and then another. And within a week, we're back to where we started. Except now there's another failure on the pile. The problem isn't willpower, it's scale. Your brain can only absorb so much change at once. When you spread your energy across 6 new habits, Each one gets a tiny fraction of what it needs. None of them get enough to stick. What works better is almost boring. Pick one thing, maybe two if they're small, and focus entirely on making those stick before adding anything extra. The size of the habit matters much less than we think. Something small that actually happens is worth far more than an ambitious plan that only exists in your head. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They think small habits aren't worth doing. 5 minutes of writing, 10 push-ups, what's the point? But here's what actually happens when you commit to something tiny. You do it, then you do it again. After a week or two, your brain starts to notice. You said you would do something, and you did, over and over. The gap between your words and your actions start to close. That's the real prize, not the 5 minutes of writing or the 10 push-ups. Those are just a vehicle. The actual goal is rebuilding the connection between what you say and what you do. And when that connection is strong, you can scale up. But if you skip straight to the ambitious plan and it falls apart, you're just widening the gap further. So start small. Make it easy enough that you can't talk yourself out of it. Let your brain learn through repetition that your words actually mean something again. There are two more things that tend to get in the way, and both are worth knowing about. Most people only track their failures, the sessions they missed, the plans they abandoned, the gap between where they are and where they want to be. And the problem with only measuring the gap is that it guarantees you'll feel like you're failing, even when you're making real progress. If you set out to work every day and you manage 4 out of 7, the gap says you failed. But 4 days when you used to do none isn't failure. That's a huge improvement. Your brain needs evidence that things are moving, that you're making progress. If all you give it is proof of falling apart, it stops trusting the whole project. So flip what you're measuring. Track what actually happened. The 2 workouts you did, not the 3 you missed. The pages you wrote, not the ones you didn't. This isn't about lowering the bar or pretending things are better than they are. It's about giving your brain accurate information. Progress at this level is quiet and easy to miss if you aren't looking for it. And when small wins start stacking up, something shifts. You're not just closing the gap anymore, you're building momentum. The last thing worth addressing is probably the most common trap of all: waiting to feel ready before you start. We've been sold a backwards story about motivation. The idea that motivation arrives first, like fuel in the tank, and then you start moving. But anyone who's spent a Saturday afternoon waiting to feel motivated knows how that tends to go. You wait, and nothing happens. The reality is that motivation usually shows up about 10 minutes after you've started. Action comes first, the feeling follows. Waiting to feel ready is one of the most reliable ways to stay stuck. Starting before you feel like it, knowing the feeling will probably arrive once you're in motion, is a much more practical approach than most people expect. None of this is particularly complicated. It doesn't require a dramatic life overhaul or 4 in the morning wake-up call. It's mostly about narrowing that gap, slowly, probably inconsistently at first, between what you say you'll do and what actually happens. The results aren't usually as dramatic as the gurus promise, but they're considerably more durable than you expect. Small, boring follow-through, done consistently over time, matters more than any single impressive effort. It's not the kind of advice that makes a great Instagram post, but it's the kind that actually works.